recruitment process for his successor has now concluded. The unanimous recommendation of the interview board was that Chloe Kilcoyne-Mawson should succeed Simon as Clerk of the Parliaments. My Lords, her appointment follows an open and external competition which attracted a wide field of high-calibre candidates. A number of internal and external applicants were interviewed by a board consisting of myself, the Noble Lord, the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Liberal Democrats, the convener of the crossbenches, and Dame Elizabeth Gardner, former First Parliamentary Counsel. My Lords, I'm sure that all of us will join me in congratulating Chloe on her appointment, and we all very much look forward to working with her in her new role.
Yeah. Any members who wish to leave the chamber at this moment may do so. Private notice question on accidental prison releases. Lord Hayward.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask a question of which I have given private notice. The question is as follows: to ask His Majesty's Government what assessment they have made of recent accidental prison releases.
My Lords, any release in error is one too many, and releases in error have been increasing for years and are another symptom of the justice system crisis inherited by this government. The Ministry of Justice has already taken immediate steps, including introducing stronger release checks with more direct senior accountability, commissioning an independent review to tackle this issue which has persisted for too long, and deploying a digital rapid response unit to all prisons to modernise release processes.
My Lords, for the absence of doubt, to ensure there is no doubt, I'm asking the question in relation to Mr. Brahim Kadur Sharif. Could the Minister please identify, in terms of a timeline, when A, the officials were first notified of the accidental release of this gentleman, and B, when the Secretary of State was first notified of the accidental release of the said gentleman?
Both the Deputy Prime Minister and myself were identified first thing on Wednesday morning when we woke up. And the Deputy Prime Minister, quite rightly, thought it was irresponsible to potentially give incorrect information to Parliament. The information was changing rapidly, and the Deputy Prime Minister didn't want to mislead Parliament without all the details.
My Lords, would my noble friend the Minister explain what, if any, impact the previous government's austerity measures and policies over a decade or more have had on the prison service today?
I thank my noble friend for this really important question. I've been visiting prisons and been interested in this area for 25 years, and what I've seen with the previous government is a lack of investment across the board. And there are three specific areas. First, they didn't build enough prisons and didn't maintain the prisons they had. Secondly, they reduced the staffing levels as part of austerity to the extent that lots of very experienced staff left, and that's especially so in probation. And the third one, which we are seeing connected with the errors on release, is a lack of investment in digital technology to help our hard-working staff who spend hours and hours with boxes of paperwork, when it'd be far more efficient and far more accurate if they had digital support to help them.
The two accidental releases from Wandsworth, together with that of Mr. Kabatu, which we discussed recently, demonstrate a continuing and frankly pretty chaotic lack of coordination. Will the investigation by Dame Lynn Owens, announced after Mr Kabatu's accidental release, now be widened to encompass all the release procedures throughout our prisons to prevent recurrence of these mistakes?
The Noble Lord will recognise that Dame Lynn Owens is a superb choice to do this investigation. And she is, I've already met with her last week to talk about the scope, and she will be looking at the whole area of releases in error. And she is already visiting prisons and speaking to staff. But one of the things, the two things I would like to reassure the Noble Lord. One is the staff who work in the offender management units, in my book, are amazing. They have to do an incredibly complex, difficult job with boxes of paperwork and to make sure it is accurate when there are so many multiple opportunities for failure in the system. And the second is, this is not a quick fix. This has been getting worse for a number of years, and it is going to take time to get it right.
The Noble Lord the Minister answered the second of my noble friend Lord Hayward's questions, but he didn't answer the first one, namely when did officials first know?
I'm not aware of the exact details, but I'm happy to write to the Noble Lord with the details when I get them.
My lords.
My lords.
Thank you. Can I ask my noble friend the Minister, what work is being done to improve prison officer training to reduce releases in error, both as a matter of urgency and in the long term?
The Ministry of Justice have a programme called Enable, which is around how we develop the skills of our fantastic staff. And in the short term, we've introduced some new checklists that are more robust than ever, and also asked for duty governor sign-off on the releases as well. But we are investing more money in training for our staff, and it is not just the staff who are joining the service, but it's also important that we invest in the staff who've often been with us for some time. And if you take the offender management unit, the complex work that they do, and I've spoken to governors who've been in the service for many, many years, and when they've started to look at the release checks that the offender management units have to do, they cannot believe how much more complex it has become over the last few years.
I know the Noble Lord the Minister works extremely hard and is very knowledgeable about this subject, and he and I have been cantering around this track for more than 2 decades. When I was last in opposition in the 2000s, I was Shadow Prisons Minister, and I used to visit, I did visit 75 of the prisons and young offender institutions and so forth in England and Wales. Even though there was a Labour government, nobody ever said it was the Labour government's fault that people escaped. And so could we have a little less of the, it was the last government's fault? Because in the 2000s, there were people escaping, there were high levels of suicide, there were high levels of violence against prison officers, there was sewage flowing from the top floors of prisons into the lower floors of prisons. Indeed, the whole estate was in a state of shambles, and the staff were in a state of low morale. So let's try and solve this problem together. He and I know that can be done, so please, I'd ask him not to fall into the trap of reading out the whip's notes.
He's not doing that.
The Noble and Learned Lord and I know each other very well, and also I hope he knows that I am someone who has my own view on these, because like him, I visit lots of prisons all the time. What is clear is that our prisons need investment, and we need to build new prisons. Only last week, I went to the opening of a new prison, which will be opening in 2028. And these are modern, highly efficient prisons that are there not just to keep the public safe, but also to rehabilitate people. But this problem that we are trying to fix is a long-term problem. And it is not just about buildings, it is about people and how we support our staff to deliver how they deliver an amazing service at rehabilitating people, so when they leave prison, they don't come back.
My Lords, I visited Wandsworth Prison last Thursday, and I was told there are about 2,000 releases every year from Wandsworth. And I was visiting the IMB, the Independent Monitoring Board, and one of the issues the IMB raised with me was a review that is going into the IMB process and the secretariat that support the IMB. Does my noble friend agree with me that IMBs are absolutely vital. They tell truth to power, they tell truth to ministers, and they tell truth to the inspectorate. And will he write to me to tell me about the process of review of IMBs which is underway and assure me that the IMBs are fully valued?
My noble friend is absolutely right that the independent monitoring boards in our prisons do a really vital job. Every prison I go to, I try and meet the IMB leaders, the chair, and last week I met with the chair of the IMB, Elizabeth Davis, to talk through how their plans were going. And I know they struggle on recruitment in certain prisons as well, but the work they do, walking the wings, speaking to prisoners, speaking to staff, is absolutely vital.
So I listened carefully to the noble Lord the Minister's answer to my noble friend Lord Hayward. He said that the information available to the Deputy Prime Minister was changing rapidly. What information was available to the Deputy Prime Minister after Prime Minister's questions that he did not have beforehand?
The Deputy Prime Minister did not have the accurate information because the information was changing by the minute. But what was certain is that when we knew exactly what the situation was, that is what we dealt with and we acted upon it. And from my experience of, we have 57,000 releases from prison. That was March 24 to 25. And in Wandsworth, which my noble friend mentioned about Wandsworth, there are 2,000 releases a year from that prison. So it's important that we get the information right, because we're often dealing with individuals with different aliases, with multiple convictions, and we need to make sure we get it right.
My Lords, 10 years ago, when I was reviewing the deaths in prison, I spent some time looking at the intake arrangements, which are clearly important in terms of assessing the risk. And in the best prisons, that was a very detailed process. Could the noble Lord the Minister tell us whether, in his experience, and not necessarily talking about this particular case, there is a wide variation between prisons in the detail with which they do the process of release in terms of the information they collect and the information they check? Secondly, can he tell us how good he feels, or whether this is another area of investment that should take place, in terms of the information flows that take place within prison to make sure that the officer releasing knows precisely the status of individual prisoners and indeed which prisoner they are talking to?
I thank my noble friend. I mean, the checklists that we've made more robust are the same checklists across all prisons, but the number of releases per prison varies dramatically. In HMP Gartrey, they average 2 releases a year, whereas I previously said in Wandsworth it is 2,000. But that is why the digital team last week went into HMP Wandsworth to look at what are the opportunities for some quick fixes to embrace digital technology. We had the AI team that went in, and I'll give you a couple of examples. They think an AI chatbot would be really helpful, and also a cross-referencing for aliases, because we know some offenders have more than 20 aliases. So it is examples like that, and we've given the team the green light to get on with that. But the noble Lord is exactly right. It's how do we deal with this information, and how do we make sure it's accurate when we're dealing with often very, very complex people in a very complex situation?
Further to that answer, can the noble Lord the Minister confirm how many prisons still rely on manual rather than digital release date calculations, and why that is so, and what plans there are to move to a digital system?
The process is a mixture of paperwork and computers and digital. So if you were to imagine an offender management unit, there are literally boxes and boxes of paperwork all over desks and on the floor that are following offenders around the various prisons that they go to. And my solution and the team solution is very much digitally based. But we need to make sure we link that across the whole justice system, and how we link in with the Home Office as well, because a number of the errors can be caused not just in the prison but also from the courts too. So longer term, it's got to be right that we look at a digital solution across the whole justice sector.
My Lords, what assessment has the Minister made of the raising of the skilled workers visa threshold and its impact on the prison service in view of the current difficulties?
It is right that the government wants to bring down net migration, and the staff that are affected, we are supporting them. And I have to say that the staff that I've met do a fantastic job, and we want to support them as much as we can.
My Lords, could I offer a revolutionary thought? Are we not sending too many people to prison who would be better off dealt with in some other way, particularly those who have serious mental illnesses?
The number of people going to prison has increased, and the number of people in prison will still increase. But that's because reoffending rates are too high. Too many people are leaving prison still addicted to drugs and alcohol. Too many people leave prison with nowhere to live, and then they reoffend and go back in the system again. One of the areas that I'm specifically interested and connects with that question is around female offenders. Because I believe, going around women's prisons, there are too many women there because they are victims themselves, and too many also are there because they are vulnerable and they are ill, and that is not always the best place to support them and their families.
I declare my interests as set out in the register. I noticed that 2 of the recent escapees were captured following information from members of the public. What does this say about public trust and confidence in the police and the importance of it?
I thank the Noble Lord for the question. One of the roles that I've had over the last couple of weeks is to be on a number of calls with police colleagues. And one of the things that is clear to me is what an incredible job that they do and how well they link in with colleagues in the Ministry of Justice. And that is specifically the case on the day-to-day work they do in prisons. And if I was to take an example of various prisons I meet, I often see police staff there. And also when it comes to probation, which is often overlooked with the role of police as well, is the role that police have to work with us to ensure that when people stay on the right side of the law, they still got that support from police colleagues. And when it comes to the work that they've done with us over the last few weeks, I think their support has been incredible, and I think we should be very proud to have them as public servants.
My Lords, House of Lords Commission and one other appointment motion, the Senior Deputy Speaker.
My Lords, I beg to move the 2 motions standing in my name on the order paper en bloc.
The question is that the 2 motions in the name of the Senior Deputy Speaker be agreed to en bloc. As many as of that opinion will say content. To the contrary, not content. The contents have it. I don't know whether this is a good moment for anybody now who wishes to leave the chamber to do so.